Eleanor Grace Whitmore, a devoted wife and mother, is betrayed by her children after the death of her husband. Believing they've outsmarted her, they plan to sell the family orchard. However, Eleanor's strength lies in her silence, and as she uncovers a hidden inheritance, she reclaims her power and legacy. This is her story of resilience. Hi everyone, I'm Jessica, the storyteller on the Family Tales channel. Here, I'll share stories about love, conflicts, betrayal, and infidelity within American families. These stories offer a deep look into relationships and the challenges families face. Stay tuned and explore with me. If you love emotional stories and want to uncover the hidden secrets in families, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of our videos. I am Eleanor Grace Whitmore. At 68 years old, I have spent nearly 5 decades as a wife, a mother, and the gentle spirit of Hazelbrook Orchards, a quaint organic apple farm set in the picturesque hills of Pennsylvania. My hands, now stiff with arthritis, still recall every moment of transforming dough into sourdough loaves and pruning trees at dawn alongside Richard, my husband. 3 weeks ago, I laid him to rest. Richard and I have been together in marriage since 1981. We created it all together, this orchard, this home, this family. However, the day following his funeral, it dawned on me that I may not have created what I believed I had. Perhaps it simply wasn't sufficient to keep my children close. Richard passed away due to pancreatic cancer. 14 months of observing a man of the earth diminish, his vitality taken piece by piece. He preferred to keep it from the kids. Allow them to enjoy their lives a bit more, free from the looming darkness, he murmured to me one evening, his words heavy with the effects of morphine. And since I cared for him, I consented. Yet, deep down, I was already aware. Darren and Samantha had drifted apart long before the diagnosis came to light. Darren, the oldest sibling, had built a rapid career in Boston's finance sector and had only returned home for a few weekends in the past 10 years. Samantha, in contrast, drifted from one unsuccessful wellness venture to the next, perpetually supported by Richard's finances and perpetually requiring just one more loan. I had wished that sorrow would reconnect them to the essence of our true selves, that they would hold the orchard in their memories, the gatherings around the dinner table, the affection that created this home. However, upon their arrival for the funeral, I noticed that there were no children grieving for their father. I observed experts evaluating an estate. After the funeral, I found myself sitting alone in the kitchen, gazing at the aged wood of our dining table. I mentioned that we could go through Richard's belongings together the following day. A simple act, a mother's method of creating room for remembrance. However, they had different intentions. The following morning, sunlight poured through the lace curtains that Richard and I had chosen together 3 decades prior. I prepared the straightforward coffee that Richard preferred, avoiding the fancy blend Darren had brought from Boston, and sat down at the kitchen table to wait. They descended the stairs, looking impeccably stylish. Darren wore a blazer he chose not to take off, while Samantha looked elegant in a silk blouse and her hair perfectly curled. They appeared as if they were on their way to a corporate gathering, rather than taking a moment to honor their father's memory. "Mom," Darren started, setting his coffee mug down with the same practiced precision I had observed in his father. "We've had some discussions." Samantha looked at him, then at me. "It's time to begin resolving matters. The property, the enterprise, the residence." I blinked, uncertain if I had heard correctly, coming to terms with it. Darren mentioned that it's practical. Managing the orchard solo isn't feasible. "The house is quite large, Mom. That's quite a lot for someone at your stage in life." "How old am I?" The words lingered heavily in the air. I had trimmed those trees next to Richard during snowstorms and scorching heat. I managed payroll during times when we lacked an assistant, baked pies for fundraising events, operated tractors, and delivered crates to food banks. "We want you to feel at ease," Samantha said, her tone polished and persuasive. A fantastic retirement community is located just 2 hours to the south, Sunnyvale Estates. Engaging pursuits, peers in your age group. I got up to remove the breakfast dishes, requiring movement to conceal my trembling hands. Next, Darren revealed a folder. Last year, Dad mentioned this to me, sliding a set of documents my way. He expressed his desire for Melissa and me to take the reins. I glanced at the document. Darren's corporate letterhead featured the print. Richard's signature, steady and too perfect, appeared off. He hadn't expressed himself that clearly in months, not since the transformation. "This isn't coming from our family lawyer," I mentioned. Darren maintained that he was clear-headed when he signed it. Samantha quickly stated that he desired this. A new beginning. A developer has shown interest. $7 million for the property. We would be all set. You will receive the care you need. A software engineer. The orchard was up for sale. Bring it to the same standard. Swap years of fruitful yields and eco-friendliness with pavement and dead-end streets. "I mentioned that you're discussing the sale of your father's life's work," I said softly. "Mom, let's be sensible about this," Darren suggested. "The orchard won't endure indefinitely." A sensation surged within me, a simmering anger I hadn't felt in years, reminiscent of the time I drove away a fox attempting to invade the chicken coop. I gazed at my children and spoke with a steady calmness. "Reveal to me the will." Darren paused for a moment, then moved it ahead once more. "I did not come into contact with it. I'm heading to bed now. Let's catch up tomorrow." Yet beneath the surface, I was aware all along. There won't be any conversation about tomorrow. They were not in mourning. A plan was being executed by them. I was wide awake all night. I lay awake in the bed Richard and I had shared for years, listening to the creaks of the farmhouse walls and the wind rustling through the apple trees outside. Each sound resonated with a sense of familiarity. The silence in my children's hearts had turned unfamiliar. As dawn broke, the aroma of coffee filled the air throughout the home. Not the cozy, sentimental type, but rather intense, harsh, and foreign. Darren's unique brew. I moved slowly, my joints aching more from betrayal than from the passage of time. As I made my way downstairs, they were already there, coats on and suitcase ready. The suitcase did not belong to me, Samantha said with a cheerful tone. "We packed some essentials for you. We were considering giving you a ride to Sunnyvale today. Feel free to take a look. There's no rush to make a decision right now." "I'm not heading to a retirement community," I declared as I poured myself a cup. Darren glanced at his watch. "Mom, let's be sensible about this." The documentation is complete. Next week, we finalize our discussions with the developers. This is not a place for you to remain. "I have spent my whole adult life in this place," I responded, my voice steady. "Welcome to my abode. It's everyone's," Darren stated plainly. "Father entrusted the business to us. Now is the moment to release." I fixed my gaze on him. For the first time, I genuinely perceived him not as the boy who had once trailed Richard through the orchards, inquiring about bees and frost, but as an unfamiliar face, a man who saw me as something to be controlled. "I require my medication," I mentioned, taking a step back, "and I would like to collect some family photographs." Samantha nodded, clearly relieved. "Take any personal items you want. We'll handle shipping the rest." I held back my tears upstairs. I collected my medication along with an unexpected surprise they were unaware of. In a hidden compartment of the medicine cabinet from the 80s, a time when Richard was concerned about break-ins, I found my passport and birth certificate. I reached behind his old flannel shirts in the closet and retrieved a small fireproof box. It was substantial. It contained something more potent than emotion, an action, The initial deed for 20 acres of land acquired under my maiden name prior to my marriage. Property that includes water rights. Land is crucial for any upcoming development. Upon my return downstairs, I noticed my purse felt heavier, yet my heart was undeniably lighter. "Are you prepared?" Darren inquired. "Of course," I replied, letting Samantha link her arm with mine. I allowed them to think I had been overcome. We cruised by the fields that were just starting to blossom, beyond the elementary school where I offered my time and support, beyond the library where I shared stories with kids. However, rather than heading down the highway to Sunnyvale, Darren took a turn onto a secluded county road. 20 minutes later, he parked on a gravel shoulder next to an open field. "This is your stop, Mom," he said, as nonchalantly as if he were pointing out a traffic signal. "We now own the house and the business." Samantha's smile wavered. "Darren, what is going on?" "She will challenge the will and create a spectacle. This is tidier. She has her clothing and medication. A gas station is located 5 miles ahead." He unlocked my entrance, and just like that, I was left standing on the side of the road with nothing. At least, that was their assumption. The vehicle vanished into the distance, trailing a haze of dust and a lingering scent of treachery. I remained motionless, the breeze pulling at my coat, gripping the small suitcase they had prepared for me. I felt no fear. I was not broken. I was liberated. I started walking, not in the direction of the gas station that Darren had kindly pointed out, but toward the town instead. Onward to my next step. My flats were not designed for gravel paths, and the early spring sun was already heating the back of my neck. Yet, with each stride, my determination grew stronger. My purse held all the essentials: my ID, my passport, my medication, and most crucially, the original deed to 20 acres of prime orchard land, a realm that Darren and Samantha were completely unaware of. The land I bought in my own name prior to my marriage with Richard. It served as a safeguard at that time, just in case the venture faced challenges. Richard referred to it as our safety net for unforeseen circumstances. At this point, it became my essential support. Those 20 acres were truly something special. The sole natural water source on the entire property was under their control. Without it, there's no irrigation. Without irrigation, there's no orchard, and no development follows. My kids believed they had me all figured out. Yet, they failed to grasp the earth that supported them. They failed to grasp the significance of legacy. I have done that. After almost 2 hours of walking, my feet were sore and covered in blisters. As I approached the boundary of Hazelbrook, the recognizable view of Miller's Gas and Grocery came into sight. It was quaint, vintage, and timeless, a setting where individuals addressed one another personally and conducted transactions with cash. I took a seat on the bench outside, observing the cars as they arrived and departed. I appeared to be nothing special, just a weary old woman carrying a suitcase. However, I possessed something far more potent than they ever could: the truth. Ray Miller emerged from behind the counter, his hands being wiped clean on his apron. He had been acquainted with me for more than 3 decades. "Mrs. Whitmore," he remarked, his brow knitting in concern. "Are you okay? You seem a bit pale. Just taking a break, Ray. It's been quite a long day," I mentioned. He glanced at the suitcase next to me, then returned his gaze to me, worry etched on his face. "Truly sorry to hear about Richard. He was a decent individual." "Indeed," I nodded. "Absolutely he was." He paused for a moment, then softly inquired if you needed to use the phone, if it's not too much of an inconvenience. He guided me through the aisles filled with canned peaches and bargain cereal, leading to a cozy office tucked away in the back. I called the number from memory, our family attorney, Harold Jennings. "Naomi," he replied immediately, taken aback. "I've been attempting to get in touch with you. I was anticipating your presence at the will reading." I clenched the receiver tightly. "Which reading are you referring to?" A moment of silence ensued. Darren put forth a will. I had some worries. "It doesn't align with the file that your husband and I revised last year. I require your assistance," I stated, my tone unmistakable. "Your judgment is appreciated." "Both of you, my office, 1 hour." I ended the call and faced Ray. "Are prepaid phones available for purchase?" He gave a slight nod. "Some people are interested. Do you want one?" "Absolutely, and a bottle of water as well." He declined to accept my payment. "Compliments of the house, Mrs. Whitmore. If you require anything further, just let me know." His kindness almost broke me down. However, I didn't shed a tear when I laid Richard to rest, and I won't shed one now. I had tasks to complete. I still had more to say. Harold Jennings' office occupied the second floor of a charming old Victorian house on Main Street, directly opposite the town library. He had served as our attorney for more than 3 decades. Harold was the type of man who donned sweater vests with sincerity and maintained a belief in the power of a handshake. Helen, his secretary, let out a soft gasp upon seeing me. "Mrs. Whitmore, Mr. Jennings is waiting for you. Can I offer you a refreshing glass of water? Would you like some coffee?" "I'm doing well, thank you," I stated. Harold greeted me at the entrance to his office. He seemed to have retained his youthfulness since Richard's last visit, maybe just a little more hunched, but his eyes remained keen and attentive. "Naomi," he said, guiding me not to the desk, but rather to a pair of leather chairs by the window. He positioned himself opposite me, his demeanor grave. "Share all the details with me." I went ahead and did it. I informed him about the funeral, the counterfeit will, a meeting reminiscent of a boardroom taking place in our kitchen, the journey, the act of leaving something behind on the side of the road. Every single detail. He remained silent. Occasionally nodding, his expression becoming increasingly somber. After I was done, I dug into my purse and pulled out the fireproof box. I retrieved the original deed for the 20 acres that Richard and I had discreetly reserved years ago, registered under my name. Harold scrutinized the document in a hushed, respectful manner. "This is pure treasure, Naomi. This is more than mere land. This is a powerful advantage. The developer is unable to proceed with any changes due to the constraints of the water rights and zoning regulations." "I understand." He reclined, tapping the edge of the deed with contemplation. "The will that Darren submitted is a forgery." My doubts were raised when I noticed the signature. It was excessively pristine, exceedingly polished for someone in hospice care. I was certain it didn't belong to Richard. "We'll take it on," Harold said, "but it requires time. In the meantime, we utilize this." He presented the deed. "You maintain legal ownership of the most essential part of the land. The sale cannot proceed without your approval." "I desire to reclaim my home," I murmured softly. "I want them to grasp the impact of their actions." Harold gave a nod. "Next, we'll ensure they grasp the concept. Initially, I will compose a letter to the developer. It is essential for them to understand that the property does not meet the expectations set before them. Are they going to withdraw? If they have any sense, they will. Developers have a strong aversion to lawsuits, and they definitely prefer to have complete land rights." He rose with a sudden sense of determination. "I happen to know a judge in the district court as well. A motion can be filed to halt the sale until the issue is settled." I gazed out the window, observing a young couple strolling hand in hand, oblivious to the subtle turmoil brewing within this small office. "I have no desire for revenge, Harold," I murmured, mostly to myself rather than to him. "I seek the truth and tranquility." He assured you that both would be yours, beginning immediately. By noon the following day, Harold had submitted an emergency injunction to halt any transfer of ownership concerning Hazelbrook Orchards. A legal notice was delivered by a courier to the development firm that Darren and Samantha had been in contact with. The deal was put on hold within hours. The developer, confronted with unforeseen legal issues and the discovery that a crucial section of the land, which held the sole natural water source, was owned separately and not disclosed, started to retreat. Harold received urgent requests for clarification from their lawyers. "I told them the truth," Harold said as we sat in his office going over the documents. "The land remains unfinished. The rights to the water cannot be transferred. Moreover, your children lack the authority they assert." That evening, I got a text from Samantha. It was the initial moment she had contacted me since they abandoned me on the roadside. "Mom, I really need you to call me. We have to discuss this. Darren is really upset and we had no idea about that other land. Can we please find a way to resolve this?" I gazed at the text on my prepaid phone. No apology was given. There was no acknowledgement of their actions. They felt a surge of anxiety as the money began to slip away from them. I chose not to respond. Later that night, Darren reached out to Harold, insisting on answers and attempting to regain authority. However, Harold assured him that all issues would now be handled through the appropriate legal processes. Harold mentioned that they are coming to the understanding that they made an error in their calculations. Poorly, I responded, as they believed I had nothing remaining. Yet, I possessed all that they overlooked in worth. He gazed at me with a subtle sense of pride. "Your poise in this situation is commendable, Eleanor. Many individuals might have opted for a total annihilation approach. I have carried kindness within me for so long that I refuse to let bitterness take hold now," I said. "However, I will not remain quiet either." Outside, the town of Hazelbrook carried on with its daily rhythm, children pedaling their bikes, a dog barking somewhere in the distance, and the sound of a lawnmower humming away. Life remained uncomplicated here, still genuine. I planned to maintain it just like that. The land shall remain unsoiled, not at this moment, not in this manner. The orchard Richard created, the legacy he left behind was more than just a product. It was a place to call home, and I still had more to do to safeguard it. In the weeks that came after, I stayed away from the old farmhouse. I secured a simple apartment situated above the bakery on the main street of Hazelbrook. The balcony was modest, just spacious enough for a rocking chair and a couple of potted herbs. The aroma of cinnamon and freshly baked bread filled the air each morning. It may not have been the home Richard and I created together, but it was still my own. And that was significant. I've resumed teaching, quilting on Wednesday evenings at the community center, just as I did previously. I started hosting weekend workshops at the library, where I shared my knowledge of organic gardening and sustainable fruit farming. Young people arrived. Retirees arrived. Even young couples aspiring to establish their own farms. Audiences engaged. It wasn't the volume of my voice that mattered, but the weight of history I carried as I spoke. The territory we had safeguarded for years. I contributed the water rights to a trust for the Hazelbrook Agricultural Cooperative, a community initiative that aids young farmers. They would utilize it rather than sell it. They would tend to the trees just as Richard had done. That was the future I envisioned. Darren and Samantha maintained their separation. I caught wind of rumors suggesting that the developer has completely withdrawn, that the project faced formal challenges and was put on hold, and that their reputations have suffered in their local areas. However, I refrained from boasting. I didn't require vengeance to be permitted to be authentic. I selected harmony, yet not at the expense of honesty. The orchard stood pristine, flourishing as it did every spring, and each time I walked by, I smiled, not with resentment, but with the serene power of a woman who had not only taken back her land, but also her voice. I was underestimated by them. Yet I had ultimately recalled my true identity. I frequently reflect on that instance on the gravel road, standing there with a suitcase I hadn't prepared, observing my children depart without a backward look. It ought to have shattered me. However, it did not. In that silence, I finally recognized the truth I had overlooked for years. Love is not blind loyalty. Being a mother doesn't mean accepting betrayal simply because you brought those who betrayed you into the world. Darren and Samantha thought they could wipe me out. It was due to my age, my grief, and my solitude that I chose not to resist. I had no option but to give up everything. However, they overlooked a crucial detail. Before I took on the roles of wife, mother, and widow, I was Eleanor Grace, a woman who crafted her life with her hands, her heart, and her intellect. And I had never needed to raise my voice to show my strength. What they perceived as vulnerability, my silence, my trust, my love, was, in truth, the strength that safeguarded me. If you're hearing this and have ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or like a mere afterthought in your own story, I need you to understand this. Your true power isn't measured by the volume of your struggle. It's about the depth of your understanding of your values. When you hold your position, even in silence, it resonates more powerfully than any act of treachery. My orchard remains intact. I still hold my name on the deed and my existence. It belongs to me once more. To all those who have heard that this is your stop, I encourage you to walk if you feel the need. But make sure to hold on to your value. Stride with intention. Move with a calm strength. When the time is right, share your narrative. It could potentially help another person. If this story resonated with you, please remember to like, share, and drop a comment below. If you've ever been overlooked and discovered your true power, share your story with us. Your narrative is significant. That's it for today's story. If you found it moving, don't forget to share the video with your friends and family. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.